beautiful people. Thank you so much for stopping by the Just Grow With It podcast. My name is Nia, and today we're going to be talking about forgiveness and how to move on from the past. So, first and foremost, I want to say thank you guys so much for listening today. I was actually supposed to post today, Friday morning. Hopefully this goes up Friday night, but I've kind of just been in such a brain fog lately, and it's just, I'm not in a bad mood, but I kind of just feel like I'm not in a motivated mood right now. I kind of feel like I'm in a funk, and I don't really want to give you guys content when I'm feeling super low energy. I feel like it's not fair for me to put that out there and try to help other people when I can't even help myself, if that makes any sense. But I'm feeling so much better than I was earlier today, and I wanted to decide to try and give it another go and see how it works out. Hopefully it works out great. I've already tried recording this 6 times today, and I just feel like I couldn't get it right. I feel like I didn't like how my voice sounded. I feel like the advice I was giving was all over the place. It was just not working out. But I really wanted to try again, and hopefully you guys enjoy this topic and enjoy the advice that I have to give. So let's get right into it. I also wanted to say that I am by no means a doctor or a licensed psychiatrist or anything like that. These are just things that I've learned from my personal experiences, research, and just living, and experiences of other people and what I've took from their situations and how they've grown and how I've grown. So let's get into it for reals this time. I wanted to start off by giving you guys a definition of forgiveness. And if you look it up, the first definition that shows up is the one from the Oxford Languages. It says the action or process of forgiving or being forgiven. And I didn't really feel like that elaborated enough, so I wanted to give, in my opinion, a better definition. And so I found another one from the Mayo Clinic, and it says forgiveness means different things to different people, but in general, it involves an intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger. And personally, it's kind of the same definition in my head too of what true forgiveness is: an intentional decision to let go of resentment and anger. And what that means for me when I'm forgiving someone is that I'm deciding that I've acknowledged their actions, I've acknowledged the situation, but I'm not going to allow it to affect or control my everyday today life. I'm not going to allow the decisions that other people made or the decisions that I've made or the situation in general to affect my day-to-day mood or affect my day-to-day decisions. I also found some really nice quotes on Pinterest, and I'm actually not sure who the original person is that came up with these quotes, so if you know, then comment down below so I can give them credit. But I literally saw 8 different pins with these exact quotes, so I'm just going to tell you guys some of my favorite ones. And the first one that I found is: forgiveness is not about them, forgiveness is for yourself. It is about letting go of anger and resentment that is festering inside of you, which is something that I agree with 1,000%. Something that I had a really hard time with when I was learning how to forgive is realizing that the past is in the past, and I can't really do anything about the past. All I can do is focus on the future. And as hard as that sounds, I know sometimes when people do us wrong or we're in a situation where forgiveness is required, it's kind of difficult to think outside of the situation that you're in and the hurt feelings that you're feeling, and focus on the future, focus on what you're actually in control of and what you can control. And it was honestly so bad where it would get to a point where I was literally getting depressed over things that happened in the past, or me just not being able to completely forgive myself. When I tell you guys, it's taken me some time to completely forgive myself or forgive others. It's definitely taken some time. And something that I used to not do was acknowledge my feelings. This is probably one of the most important steps in this entire process, because sometimes we're trying to be super strong or just not acknowledging our feelings because we feel like, oh, it's unnecessary, oh, I don't have time, or oh, I'm just overreacting, or I shouldn't have reacted this way, or just try to belittle ourselves because we feel like it's not valid, it's not really appropriate to have those feelings or to feel hurt or to feel upset or frustrated. But it's completely normal for us to feel those things. And one thing that we are definitely in control of in this whole forgiveness process is how we feel and how we handle our feelings, because at the end of the day, the only person that we can truly control is ourselves. something that helped me acknowledge my feelings even more was writing. I would journal, I would write down my thoughts, I would meditate on the situation, not like meditate. Well, actually, I would think about the situation or the situations or the actions of others frequently, and I would let it, like I said, affect my day-to-day life. I would let it take over my mood and put me in a bad mood because I was so angry and frustrated about the past. I wasn't allowing myself to focus on what I was in control of, which was in the future and my actions and what I was going to take from that situation to prevent it from happening again. Along with journaling and meditating on these things, I would call my mom like I do for everything. But I would literally call my mom and I would talk to my mom about my feelings, and I would get another person's opinion, or I would talk to my aunt about these feelings that I would have, or just someone that I trusted. And that can be your spouse, that can be your friend, that can be literally anyone that you feel comfortable with. And it's just good to get another person's perspective on the situation sometimes. And we already are validating our feelings on our own, but sometimes when we talk to other people, it's nice to see the situation from a different person, like a different point of view, because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes the other person isn't always in the wrong, and it takes two for a situation to turn out crappy sometimes. So sometimes the other person's perspective will point out things like, hey, maybe I was a little bit wrong, maybe I was in the wrong in this way, or it'll make you accountable for your actions too, because I know sometimes when somebody does something wrong to us, it's almost like, no way on earth did I provoke the situation. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes we do provoke the situation. We do make the situation bad too. Like, it's not always just one person making things bad. So we have to be able to realize, hey, maybe I was a little bit in the wrong and that person was still in the wrong, but it was like a joint effort for the situation to turn out how it turned out. So definitely try to talk to someone about these things, because from experience, it feels so much better getting things off of your chest, getting things out of your mind. And I know that if we just hold things in our mind, even for like when I do my day-to-day to-do list, I have to write it down, because if I just keep it in my head, I'll get so overwhelmed. I'll end up getting nothing done. I'll literally go to sleep frustrated and super overwhelmed. So just getting these thoughts and these feelings out of your body, whether that's verbally or on paper, it helps so much. It'll bring you so much peace, and it almost feels like a weight is lifted off of your shoulders when you just get it out there and clarify, like just putting it out there in the universe, like, I'm done with this situation. I acknowledge my feelings, and this is no longer going to serve me a purpose. Step number 2. This one was really hard for me. Honestly, these are all kind of hard for me, but this one really took me some time to realize, was that people don't become hurt overnight. Like, there's a saying, and I think it goes like, hurt people, I think I'm saying it right. But pretty much what I took from that saying is, someone has had to hurt someone for them to think that their actions are okay. Unless you're just born a crappy person. But realizing that someone has had to hurt that person that hurt you, because people don't just learn things, overnight. Like, it takes time. Like, maybe the person that hurt you, or you hurting yourself, is because of the way that you grew up or the people that you were surrounded by. These things are learned. Like, we all come here learning things growing up, and something must have happened for that person to think like, okay, like, for me to treat this person this way is normal, or for me to act this way is normal, when in reality it's not normal. That's just the normal for them. So if there's never been a good example set for someone, they're not going to know what a good example is, because they've never experienced it, and they're just going to grow up surrounding themselves with other people who don't grow up with good examples or like-minded people. And it's so hard sometimes to realize that you did nothing wrong. It's just that this person is literally so hurt and has never had a good example. They don't know how to be a good person. And if you're already a good person and you're constantly pouring into other people's cups, that's something that I really recommend that you don't just do. Like, make people work for not your kindness, because you should just be a kind person in general, but make them work for access to you. Make them work for all of your time. Make them work for all of your energy. Like, as selfish as it sounds, you have to kind of gatekeep your energy and gatekeep who you truly are. If you're a really good person and you feel like people easily take advantage of you, don't just give people all of your good qualities, because people like that will take advantage of you and they'll just end up hurting you because they're not going to appreciate your value. And they're just going to, like I said, they're going to just hurt you because that's all that they know is to hurt. Because that's all that they were ever taught. And if you have in your mind, well, I can change them, I can teach them how to be a better person, I can teach them how to love, or I can teach them how to respect me, like, that's something that people have to want to do on their own, and that's not something that you can teach people. Yes, you can set that example of how to be loving, how to be caring, how to be a respectful person. But like I said, at the end of the day, people have to want to change within themselves. So if this goes in hand with moving on, if people are not going to respect your boundaries and respect the rules that you set for yourself, then it's definitely time to move on. If unfortunately you've already allowed this kind of person to have access to you, then all you can do is just forgive yourself and forgive them and realize, like, they were not meant to be in my life. And just kind of cut them off and kick them out. Like, they're not allowed to have access to you anymore. Also realizing that, is this kind of person the kind of person that you want around? Is this the kind of person that you want to keep dragging along your life? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you need to think about it a little bit harder, because nobody really wants anyone like this dragged into their life. If they're just draining all the energy out of them, they're not really giving anything to the relationship, they're just constantly hurting you. You just have to cut people like that off and forgive yourself for allowing that kind of person in your life, and forgive them for hurting you, and acknowledging that that's kind of all that they know. But at least you got out of it and you don't have to deal with them anymore, because like I said, we're going to cut them off. So it's a win-win, because that person is going to lose you, and if they're trying to grow, they're going to reflect on, wow, I lost a really good person in my life. And if they didn't value you at all, then they're going to realize nothing, and you don't have to deal with them anymore. So it works out perfectly. Step number 3 is realizing that nobody is perfect. At some point or another, we've hurt someone, whether we're aware of it or not, and in that case, we would want them to forgive us. And I feel like this is something that subconsciously I probably have done a lot, especially in like my younger days. I would just like blurt stuff out, especially when people would hurt me. I would just automatically want to retaliate and hurt them back. Like if someone commented about just anything, like it wouldn't even be that deep, but I would be like, okay, like you scratched me, now I have to like slit your throat. Like I have to have something mean to say like 10 times harder, and that's not always necessary. Sometimes we just have to realize that people are hurting inside and they're projecting their hurt feelings onto us, their insecurities onto us. I've said things that I've definitely automatically regretted and was like, holy crap, did that just come out of my mouth? Like, why would I even say that? What made me think that that was okay to even say that? Fortunately, I don't do that now. If I do, then if you're around me outside of this podcast, then please let me know, because I don't really try to do that on a day-to-day basis. I don't go about my days trying to hurt other people's feelings or make other people feel bad, but sometimes things just slip, and subconsciously we don't even mean to just attack people. Sometimes we just say things and we don't even realize that it's going to hurt someone. And in that case, we need to be obviously apologetic if somebody's coming to us and saying, hey, like, I don't know if you meant it or not, or even if they don't say that, like, hey, what you said really hurt my feelings, and then, we'll obviously be in the position to apologize if we hurt someone's feelings, especially if it was unintentional. Like, we weren't even really thinking about it that deep, and maybe it was just that deep for that person. We have to be ready to apologize, and in this situation, we're going to be the ones asking for forgiveness. It would really suck if somebody was like, okay, like, I don't accept your apology. Or, I've actually had that happen to me. Someone was like, I've apologized to someone, and they literally didn't say nothing to me. Like, I explained why I was apologizing, and I didn't try justifying my actions. I explained my actions, and then I apologized because I didn't even know that my actions had affected them until someone else came to me and was like, oh, like, they said that they're mad at you because this and that. And I was like, really? I didn't even know that this and that was something offensive. Like, I thought I was just helping. Like, my bad. And so I even went to them and apologized to them, and they didn't even acknowledge my entire existence, like my entire being. Like, I was not there. They didn't even look at me. Nothing. So sometimes when we go to apologize to people, we have to be ready too that not everyone is going to forgive us. Not everyone is going to be mature enough to have that conversation of why forgiveness is needed or why you did what you did. all that we can do is, like I said earlier, focus on what we can control and try to be forgiving of others, especially if they're coming to you and apologizing to you. I feel like when people do that, it shows that they would more than likely try not to do the same thing that they did in the first place to hurt you. And that alone is a sign for me that they deserve forgiveness. What is me holding a grudge against this person going to do for me? I'm just going to be walking around angry at this person. And if that's one thing about me, I don't really like to be angry at people. And if we've ever had any problem or any ended on a bad note, just know that I've already forgiven you, because nothing is worth stressing about that much. And when you just let it build up, like I said in the beginning, it literally will affect your day-to-day mood. You owe that to yourself to forgive others and acknowledge things and decide to just move on, because it's no point in just dwelling on the past and letting it just take over your day-to-day life. But started rambling, sorry. But pretty much the point of tip number 3 is to forgive others and treat others how we want to be treated when it comes to forgiveness. So if we want to be forgiven, we have to be ready to forgive other people freely. And like I said, don't not acknowledge your feelings. Don't not be aware of the mistakes that person made, but just be ready to forgive them. And the next part is up to you. You are in control of if you want to allow this person access in your life or not. And even if someone doesn't come to you and apologize to you for their actions, like I said, they may not even be aware of what they did hurt your feelings or put you in a tough spot. Or if you've already vocalized it to them that they hurt your feelings and they still decide not to forgive you, or if you've already vocalized to them that they've hurt your feelings and they don't apologize or anything, then I definitely think that it might be time to close that door, close that chapter of your life, and just kind of move on. Because if somebody really cared about you, they wouldn't be having you question if your feelings are invalid or not, or if you bringing up the topic of how they hurt your feelings is worth an apology or not. You kind of just have to let them go and move on with life and forgive yourself for even allowing yourself to be in that situation in the first place. Tip number 4 is forgive, but don't forget. I know what you're thinking. Nia, this is literally holding a grudge. You want me to forgive, but not forget? What I mean by that is everything in life happens for a reason to a certain extent. When we experience certain things, whether that's a good experience or a bad experience, we can learn from those experiences. We can remember how bad that a certain situation or another person made us feel and try to apply that in how we don't want to make other people feel. For example, if somebody's parents grew up never showing them love or never showing them affection, then they're probably going to grow up and feel like they don't have to show anyone love and they don't have to show anyone affection because that's normal. And if they're aware that their parents never showed them love, their parents never showed them affection, something that they're going to have to realize is that that's not normal, for one. And 2, to be the complete opposite of that. Yeah, it'll take time for you to learn how to love. Yeah, it'll take time for you to show affection, but it's something that you didn't receive. So you have to learn how to use it to your advantage, if that makes any sense. Like, do what people didn't do for you because you know that's what you wanted, or you know that was the right thing to do. If somebody wasn't doing the right thing, do the complete opposite, and it'll help you so much. Instead of being like, oh, so-and-so didn't do this and that for me, or oh, I wasn't taught that. Like, oh, really, you weren't taught that? Then go learn how to do that. Or so-and-so didn't do that for you, then you do that for other people or for the next relationship that you're in, because you know how badly you wanted it. You know how it made you feel to not have that act of service or whatever it might be. So that's what I mean when I say forgive, but don't forget. Forgive the actions that someone else did, but don't forget how it made you feel, and try to learn from it and realize what you can do differently because of how that past situation or whatever made you feel. Learn what not to be, if that makes any sense. Something else that I saw on Pinterest a couple times when I was looking at forgiveness quotes is, forgiveness is my gift to you. Moving on is my gift to myself. So what I took from this was, when we forgive other people, we're allowing ourselves to not hold a grudge against them. We're allowing ourselves to not hold anger towards them, right? But not only that, we're allowing that person that hurt us or did us wrong to be able to live life knowing that, hey, like, your negative actions 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever the case may be, 3 weeks ago, it's not going to affect me anymore. So you don't have to worry about you messing up someone's life. Or you know what I mean? Like kind of stressing about, oh my gosh, like did I mess up this person's life or whatever the case may be. Sometimes, yes, certain things do mess up other people's lives, but that's when forgiveness comes into play and realizing that the past is in the past and we can't live our day-to-day lives as if we can. Our day-to-day lives, the decisions we make in our day-to-day lives can change our past. Like nothing can change the past. All we can do is try to learn from our past and use the knowledge that we have, learn from those situations, and try to make our path for our future more clear and easier to navigate. What to look out for. And the second part where it says moving on is my gift to myself, I really, really like that part because I feel like time can only heal certain things, right? But ultimately, it's up to us to forgive. Yes, time will heal things, but we have to be wanting to forgive and to not let things affect us on our own. That's not something that's just going to happen overnight sometimes. Like I said, these things do take time. It's definitely not an overnight process. It's definitely not an hour process. It's going to take a while. But once you open up your mind to be able to move on and focus on your future and focus on all of the great things that are ahead of you, all of the good things that are going to come to you once you acknowledge the past, acknowledge the feelings that you felt, realize, hey, if that situation were to happen again, would the actions be the same, or would that person still do the same thing? Would I still do the same thing? Would I put myself in that situation? Would I decide to make these decisions that led up to the same situation? And if the answer is no, then that is amazing, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of the person that hurt you, even though, I mean, we don't need to be around them still. Just because we're proud of them doesn't mean that we need to let them back in our lives. But I'm just saying, like, that alone is so freeing to me, because if we can realize that, hey, we wouldn't make the same decisions, we wouldn't make the same thing, that alone shows that you've grown, that you've acknowledged the situation, that you've realized what happened, and that you have a different mindset now. You realize that your actions were not okay. And if you were to encounter the same situation again today with a different person, would you do the same thing? If the answer is yes, then maybe you need to work on some more things a little bit more. But like I said, people grow and people change, and people encounter situations where sometimes they're the bad guy in the story this time around, right? But then somebody comes along and they play them even harder than they played the person before that they were playing. So it's like people will always meet their match, and people will always learn, whether it happens in a year, whether it happens in a week, whether it happens in 10 years. Like, people are going to grow. People are going to change. And imagine if we didn't grow. Like, imagine if we didn't change. Imagine if we stayed the same person that we were when we were out here just hurting people and cutting people's throats, like, with our words, like, just being little villains, you know? Like, honestly, imagine how crappy the world would be if we weren't able to grow and reflect on situations and forgive people and forgive ourselves too. Because in all of this, that's the most important thing. That's one of the most important things that I had to learn about forgiveness, is being able to forgive myself, because I didn't feel like I was worthy of forgiveness. I didn't feel like I was ever going to change. I didn't really see the point of changing. And what I mean by, like, I didn't feel like I was worthy of forgiveness, I was kind of stuck for a while where I was like, well, I did everything that I could in the situation. I did everything right, and blah, 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 blah. But then I realized, like, okay, well, maybe I didn't do everything right in the situation, or maybe this person is feeling the same way that I'm feeling, and maybe they're too embarrassed to apologize to me about it. But like I said, sometimes only time can heal things, and time goes on, and it's kind of no point, in my opinion, of reaching out to people from the past or things that happened in the past and being like, hey, like, I'm sorry that this happened 10 years ago, or I'm sorry that I treated you this way. You know, like, people are already moving on with their lives if they're trying to grow and overcome things. Hopefully people are already moving on with their lives, and they're kind of like, well, I realized, like, that person was still immature and that person was still growing. And that's another thing about forgiveness too, is that we're literally all growing and still learning things. Like, you will never stop learning until the day that you die. there's so many things to learn on this entire earth, and so many experiences to learn, and so many triggers that we're going to learn about other people all throughout our lives. We're not ever going to be done learning. So that's something else too that's kind of hard to realize. Like, people think, oh, like, adults aren't supposed to hurt me, adults are supposed to know everything. But here's a newsflash: adults don't know nothing. Like, they're literally still learning. There's no guide on when you turn 18 on how to be a proper adult and how to treat other people. Like, adults know nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like, there's so many things to learn. We don't even know as much as we think that we know. But that was one thing that I definitely had a hard time with, was realizing that everyone is still learning, everyone is still growing. Just like how I'm learning and I'm having these realizations that I could be in the wrong and that they were in the wrong and that they were still learning, I need to forgive them, just like how I would want the same forgiveness to be reciprocated. And holding, like I said so many times in this episode, you guys are probably so tired of hearing me say this, but me holding on to grudges against people isn't going to help me at all. What is that going to do for my day-to-day life? What is that going to do for my future? Absolutely nothing. All I can do is learn from that situation, realize how certain actions affected me or what hurt me, and decide, hey, I'm going to be the complete opposite of that because I know how that makes someone feel, and I don't want to be the person that's making people feel bad. So definitely forgiving others the way that we would want to be forgived, as cliche as that sounds, it's amazing. Like, I sleep so good at night not holding grudges at people and forgiving people, but also not forgetting what they've done, because we don't want to just constantly let toxic people back in our lives, even though they make the same mistakes over and over again. It's really important to set your boundaries and realize that you do deserve forgiveness. You do deserve to feel good. You deserve to be surrounded by people that are going to make you feel good about yourself and that you're going to make feel good about themselves. Like, once you clear up all the negative space that holding grudges and these toxic people are holding in your life and all these negative things, good things are going to just start flowing to you and coming to you, because now you're not angry at anyone. You're ready to forgive, and you don't have to go apologize to people directly. I mean, if you're around this person all the time, like it's a family member or something, then maybe apologize. But if it's like, I don't know. Like, I can't really think right now. I'm kind of in a fog, like I told you guys. But if you don't see this person frequently, like, you're not forced to be around them. Like, this person isn't guaranteed in your life until you die, like a family member, not by choice, but, or like like a sibling spouse or something. I'm just trying to think. Like, I'm the oldest. None of my siblings are married. But either way, like, if it's a situation like that, then, I mean, try to make peace with people, obviously. Try to forgive and just hope. Try to see the good in people, as hard as that can be sometimes, because sometimes we get so caught up in our own feelings. But sometimes going out of your way to apologize to people is worth it, and to forgive them. But other times it's kind of not really needed, and all you can do is just hope that the person that's hurt you has moved on with their life and recognized that they did something wrong and that they've hurt you. But if they don't, that's okay too. All we can do is forgive them and just focus on ourselves. All that attention that we put into holding grudges, put that into yourself. Think about yourself. Like, anytime that you're having a negative thought, or you're angry or you're frustrated with someone, try to think about yourself. Like, try to switch the thoughts around and just be like, okay, like, what can I do for myself today to make myself feel good? Or what can I do to improve myself? Like, invest all that energy that you're investing into holding grudges and focusing on the past into yourself and into your future and into your now. And something that really helped me out doing that, focusing on the future, living in the moment, and forgiving people in the past, is planning for the future. Even though I've already said this a million times in this episode, I know I sound like a broken record this entire episode, and I'm so sorry, you guys. Like I said, my brain is kind of like mushy, but I didn't want to not put something out. So this is not the best podcast episode you guys will probably get, and I'm so sorry again. But either way, like I was saying, focus on the future, focus on goals for yourself, focus on the kind of person that you want to be, because you definitely deserve all of the good things. You deserve to have a great quality of life. You deserve everything good. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but just realizing that you don't deserve bad situations and you don't deserve the things that happened to you in your past. So give yourself the gift of moving on and forgiveness. Focus on what's in your control acknowledge all of your feelings, and even though it's difficult, forgive other people. But most importantly, forgive yourself, because you deserve it. And that's all for this episode's podcast, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, tell me what one of your favorite tips are for forgiving and moving on. And if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow all of my socials. They're going to be in the description on the bottom of this video. I hope you have a good rest of your day or night, whatever time you're listening to this. And that's all for this episode.